The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast about The Nanny, a hit sitcom from the 90s that you may or may not remember. Hopefully you do, because why else are you listening to this show? I am Sean Pasquale here with...
Toria Sheffield, and I really thought you were going to start that one over, but you skied through it.
My pronunciation made me laugh, and then I was like, should I start over? And then I was like, nah, it was a funny pronunciation.
No, I'm glad. I like it. I like when they see the human element of who we are.
Yeah, we're morons. Peel the curtain back. Oh, look, it's two dummies back there.
But so, yes, and this is Franny and the Professor.
Yes, season 3, episode 2, Franny and the Professor. What do you think the title is about? Do you think it's just straightforward? Because this is the one where she doesn't even really date. She like...
This is the episode where Cece's brother comes to visit and bets Cece that he can turn Fran into a Jeopardy contestant. So he ends up spending a lot of time with her, but she doesn't
not
know
really dating.
No, but she doesn't think that they're spending time together just because of a bet, though.
Right. Also, this was like My Fair Lady with Jeopardy.
It was, and quick thing. Were you asking me a leading question about Franny and the Professor, or do you really not know? Because I get that into that in trivia.
Oh, I really don't know, so let's save it for truth.
Okay.
Times.
Well, I will say
there's a teaser. Stick around and find out why it's called Franny and the Professor.
Oh, and I'll say this. This is an episode that a lot of people probably remember because it has Alex Trebek, and Fran actually goes on Jeopardy for this one. I mean, obviously not actually on Jeopardy as, in the real world, but they have like the Jeopardy set and all of that stuff. And my note says, this episode is a precursor to Slumdog Millionaire. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It is very much My Fair Lady, but with knowledge, not class.
I mean, you also might remember this episode because of Michael McKean. That's of Better Call Saul or any of the
Christopher Guest movies.
Christopher Guest movies. Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. Spinal Tap, Mighty Wind. I mean, he was in all of them. He's at Best in Show. I think he's in Waiting for Guffman. I mean, I think he's in all of those movies. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. He's great. Michael McKean is fantastic. As soon as he walked in, I was like, oh, okay, well, this character is going to be great. And he was.
Yeah. And so we start this episode off as we do many episodes. We're at the breakfast table, and Fran is just talking about TV shows she likes. And specifically, it was like... Right, and goes, Fran, have you seen the TV guide? And she goes, it's right here. And she points to her head. And we find out that if you ask her any question about the television lineup, she knows like what's coming on after it, who's guest starring. And people, I realize our younger listeners might not even know what a TV guide is.
Dude, my first note is let's talk about TV Guide and how it died. Because TV Guide was a very important part of my life growing up. Yes. It was crucial to my week. My mother and I used to go to we had a subscription to TV Guide, as most people did, because how else did you know what was on TV? But then once a year, we would go to the grocery store at the beginning of the fall to buy an extra copy of TV Guide. So we both had one to read all of the fall TV previews. That's a real thing we used to do.
So, and just for context for that, TV Guide, it was like a little booklet. It was like, not a magazine because it was thicker than a magazine. And it just literally had all the listings for the week for what was going to be on TV because this was pre-internet. And it was
was even so first it was TV Guide, right? It was literally it was the first like 30 or 40 pages were in like magazine kind of glossy print. And then the back half of the book was like really thin, shitty newsprint because it was not, it was just like disposable. You'd throw it out at the end of the week. It was worthless because all it had in it was, literally every single time. And then what was on TV next to that.
But it's just it's funny because you forget how we used to do things. And it's like, that was a very practical solution to a very everyday problem. How did you know it was going to be on TV that week? you had a little booklet that arrived at your home
Yep.
and you kept it on your coffee table.
Which is all to say, this whole joke does not work if you don't understand what they're talking about. But
Yes.
it's very, very funny if you got it.
Yes.
They also, right before that, Fran is talking about a wedding, and it sounds like it's like a wedding she went to at first. And then she's like, yeah, and Val was crying the whole time. And you're like, oh, did they go to a wedding? And then she's like, I just can't believe Dr. Quinn got married.
Yeah. Like that Dr. Quinn made a beautiful bride. So she had spent the evening watching TV.
Dr. Quinn, nice woman.
And then we also set this dynamic up, which, you know, we've never seen this overtly. And I think like this harshly, which is that like Mr. Sheffield, at least as written in this episode, just does not consider Fran someone he would like ever have an adult conversation with about like politics or current affairs, because he's like he's very conspicuously behind his newspaper. And then he, you know, kind of he says something a little like derisive, and she's like, well, you know, it's because I talk to kids all day. Maybe if you weren't always behind that paper and I got a chance to have an actual adult conversation. And he kind of like smugly folds the newspaper over and he's like, all right, like let's have an adult conversation, affirmative action, for or against. And then again, as Fran has written, at least in this episode, she doesn't even know what affirmative action is and clearly thinks it's some kind of firming body lotion for cellulite. And she says she's against because her mother's been using it for years and like her legs still look like pudding or something like that.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because like we've gone back and forth on this because sometimes like we've read IMDb comments where they'll be like, Fran's too stupid to know what this is, you know? Mm-hmm. And we're like, she's not that stupid. And then this episode kind of like disproves our point because the writers are literally like, no, she's that stupid. So is it inconsistent writing just overall? Or, you know, is she, because she's not stupid, but we have pretty firmly established like she doesn't really follow current events unless they're like gossip mag current events. Like she knows what's going on with Clinton and OJ, but like why would she know affirmative action?
But also, this is the woman who refuses to cross a picket line, and also a woman who refuses to wear fur.
Okay, but both of those examples are things that, well, the picket line thing was solely just from like a way she was raised. It wasn't like that she had like some deep-seated knowledge of how unions work. She was just like, this is how I was raised. You don't cross a picket line. So like, that's more like a cultural belief thing, you know, and I think she even says in that episode, like she had an uncle who was in the union. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's very possible she's just one of those people who's not actually stupid, but the information she knows is just through like the avenues that she's interested in or had experiences with. So maybe she, you know,
that's what I think. You know, it's like, yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like she knows about not wearing fur because that was like a very popular like talking point at the time for like celebrities and like all of the things that she would follow, which is like celebrity gossip and all of this stuff, interviews with like her favorite celebrities who were like, oh, fur is murder. You know what I mean?
Okay, I will buy that. And then maybe that helps me be a little less annoyed by like this thing that they do in TV shows where sometimes they'll kind of change a character just for one episode to serve a plot that they wanted to do, which is, like getting Fran on Jeopardy. But the thing that also was happening throughout this episode is Mr. Sheffield we get the sense that instead of, you know, him recognizing and appreciating and respecting that like she has a different set of skills than he does, and that's what makes them a good team. It was almost like kind of like I was almost like, if these two ever got together, like this would be horrible. Like he clearly thinks she's an idiot.
Okay, now that I will give you is I think his writing is more inconsistent than hers. I think his writing is exactly violating the rule that you're saying, which is like, it's convenient for this episode for him to not have any respect for her intellect, so he doesn't. Whereas like 2 episodes ago, he was like, she's smart and she knows her shit and like she's tough and you know what I mean? And like it also, like you're saying, it's like they're trying to push this romance between them. But like if his view of her intellectually is that she is like dumber than a rock, then you start to question like, well, what do you like about her? She's just hot.
Yes. And that's kind of, you just got the sense that he didn't have any real respect for her. And I think it could have been written slightly differently where maybe, he would have said something like, Miss Fine, like you're very intelligent in your own way, but this isn't really the realm for you. Like, and then she gets to prove him wrong, which is also extra kind of satisfying and fun. But also we don't get the sense that he just thinks she's like, the dumb bimbo who, raises his kids. But so I also, great segue. My note is, did you notice her hair? Middle part. I wrote, it's huge. And middle part again.
Yep.
So they're growing for, and we've also watched the next episode. That's clearly, I think, her hair this season.
Yeah.
And I'll say this for anyone who's interested. I think they're using a lot of extensions now because her hair is bigger than ever, and that's a very common thing. Even if you have totally nice normal hair in real life, if you're on a TV show or a movie, they'll still pack it with extensions.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It is huge right now.
Yeah.
And so then, okay, so that we've covered so much ground and we've not even started this episode really. But, so we established that yes, Fran, all of the information and knowledge she has is like about pop culture, and Mr. Sheffield doesn't necessarily have respect for her,
intellect.
Yeah. Her intellect.
Intelligence.
Yeah. And the next scene we have, she is in Mr. Sheffield's office and he is trying to work while she is spying on the people moving in next door. She literally has binoculars. And this made me laugh. Mr. Sheffield gets frustrated and yells. And she goes, shh, what if the person moving in next door is a single guy? If he hears you yelling at me, he's going to think we're married. And when we also established in this scene that President Clinton is hosting what was called a Renaissance weekend at the White House, which was a meeting of, great minds in all different fields. And Mr. Sheffield clearly was hoping he would get invited as sort of a representative from the theater community. And he's not on the list, but he reads in the paper that Andrew Lloyd Webber was invited. So he's not.
Classic Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I know. Then we established, I think, what is the A plot after all of this, which is, they move they move into the living room, and Cece is there putting sort of a tray of appetizers and drinks together. And we find out that her brother, Noel, is coming to visit. And Fran's like, wait, a single guy? And Cece goes, oh, Miss Fine, like he definitely wouldn't be interested in you. He's a professor at Northwestern. So we established she has this, erudite, intellectual brother who's coming. And I noticed in this episode as well that the Cece Niles dynamic has not changed, and they have not referred to that kiss that they shared last week. Like they've gone right back into their sort of sparring, I hate you relationship, which I think is a very good choice. I think that we don't need any more of that, at least right now.
Agreed.
And so then Michael McKean, aka Cece's brother Noel, shows up. And we established that they have this very specific brother-sister relationship where they're always teasing each other. They're always making bets. They're always betting large amounts of money. They're very kind of a cold, blue-blooded vibe between them, but also, a great affinity for each other, which comes up later in a weird joke, which we'll get to. A lot of our listeners wrote in about this joke as well. But so he meets Fran and he meets the family, and then he and Cece are just sitting around talking, and he asks if there's anything going on between Fran and Mr. Sheffield, and she's like, oh, no. Maxwell's an educated man. She went to Nick at Night school, which did make me laugh. And then this is where we get that weird joke where he's like, yes. He goes, Cece, would you like to have some fun? And then she goes, I thought that was against the law.
And he laughs like,
and the audience loves it too. Yeah, the audience loves it too.
Everyone loves a good incest joke, I guess.
But the thing is, the way that Cece asked it, I don't think she was making a joke. I think she was like, she wasn't saying that like tongue in cheek. It seemed like she was genuinely thinking that he was propositioning her, and she was like, but I don't think we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Very weird.
He goes, stop, you're going to make me go right here, which I think meant pee his pants.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love that. I love stop. You're going to make me go.
It actually sounds more like a Sylvia line than a professor line.
It's so funny.
But so he then says, no, that's not what I mean. He's like, I'll bet you my Lamborghini for like your prize racehorse that I can get Fran onto Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And so now we've really established like what this episode is about. And so the next two scenes are, Noel ingratiating himself with Fran. He's like complimenting her intelligence and, saying how he doesn't understand why she's insecure about how smart she is because, he can tell she's so brilliant. He actually says something like, I think you could even be on Jeopardy. Like, let's try to throw some questions at you. And then we cut to what is clearly several hours later. He looks exhausted. Fran has like been completely like not just getting things wrong, but like so out of left field wrong. Like can't even follow the questions he's asking. And basically, Cece's brother's like, all right, why don't we pick this up tomorrow? Okay. And he's like, I have a headache. So he leaves and Mr. Sheffield enters and he's, like, oh, like is Noel no longer here? Too bad. So we definitely get the sense that he has been noticing that Noel and Fran have been spending time with each other and he is not liking it. And he's very passive aggressively kind of just poo-pooing the whole dynamic.
Yeah, their whole relationship.
And she's like, oh, is it so surprising to you that like, a man of his caliber could, find something interesting in me? And he literally says something like, I'm pretty sure that's not what's arousing him, Miss Fine. Implying that like, no, there is no way that like an intelligent man could be interested in her, which is such a dig. And then
and again, it's like, that's either a cell phone and he's like, I'm not smart enough to be a smart enough man to not be attracted to you.
Yes.
Or he's literally just like, even I am only into you for your looks.
Yes. Also, when you said self-own, it sounded like
I said cell phone.
I did. It took me a second to catch up as to like how that was connected to
It's a cell phone. Yeah. It's just like an iPhone, Toria.
Oh, now I understand.
Thank you.
But then
when am I going to get on Jeopardy?
So we have this exchange, which is very similar to an exchange they had in that episode A Star Is Unborn when Fran is going to be in basically like an off-Broadway production.
Yes.
And she's just like, you're just upset because Noel sees my potential. And she's like, you just want to keep me in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. And he's like, you're the one who wanted to have children and make it your full-time job. And then he's like, wait, what am I saying? And it's just one of those fights that devolves into a married couple fight and they both like lose the thread of what it's about. But they also,
I like the reveal that at some point she floated to him, we should have children. So this is my full-time job.
No. I interpreted that as, he's saying like, you're the one who wanted to be a nanny and make children your full-time job.
Oh yeah. I guess that's what he said.
So we then cut to a few days later in Mr. Sheffield's office. And like, so we know that Mr. Sheffield and Fran did not really end any of that on good terms. And she's clearly spending a lot of time with Cece's brother now, prepping for Jeopardy. And it's, classic Mr. Sheffield, like no self-awareness. He's like, Niles, I can't concentrate. Something just feels different. It's too quiet. And then there was this great moment where
I love this.
Yeah, Niles is like, oh, maybe I can help you out with, figuring it out. And he literally hops up on the desk and goes, oh, Mr. Sheffield. Doing a Fran impression.
It's so good. He does like an American accent and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he like crosses legs on the desk and he's like, Mr. Sheffield, it's clear that you miss her. And Mr. Sheffield's like, oh, I don't miss her. I'm just wondering where she is, what she's doing, how she's feeling. That's totally different than missing her. And Niles has this great moment where he just kind of like almost like gazes off into the distance and like lost in thought. And Mr. Sheffield's like, are you all right? And Niles is like, oh yes, Mr. Sheffield. I'm just trying to figure out how you ended up there, like behind the desk. And he's like, and I ended up here, like holding the dust mop. And he's like, it doesn't seem right. Which is so true. Like he's clearly much smarter than Mr. Sheffield.
Much smarter.
And then, but in this moment though, Niles reveals to Mr. Sheffield that the only reason Noel is taking such an interest in Fran right now is because of a bet.
Right.
But he, in an also really nice Niles moment, kind of like asked Mr. Sheffield not to tell Fran about it or not to like rub her nose in it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sheffield's like, of course. And then like the second they hear the front door open and close, he literally giddily jumps out of his chair and like runs towards it because he, in utter glee, like he just wants to really like sabotage what's happening.
He really wants to remind this woman of her place in the world.
But no, it's actually a much pettier, more selfish place because he's like, I don't like you hanging out with this guy, so I'm gonna like burst your bubble.
Yeah.
And the way that he runs across the house was really funny. It was great. Yeah, it's really well done by Charles Shaughnessy.
He doesn't do a lot of physical comedy, but it was good. It was good.
And he's like, he is. When Charles Shaughnessy is playing Mr. Sheffield, like at his funniest, it's when he is very childlike and petty. Yes. This is perfect. And so, but Fran comes in with Noel and she announces that she made it on to Jeopardy, actually, like shocking everyone. This is like I'm not even going to save it till the end, but this is like my favorite line. Cece's brother goes, yes, like, I'm so proud of you, Fran. And he goes, her thirsty little mind soaked up all that knowledge like a sponge. or her thirsty mind soaked up all that knowledge like a little sponge. And it was just, I was laughing so hard, just like the idea of her thirsty little mind.
Her like knowledge depraved mind. Or knowledge deprived.
And then, Susie starts sobbing because she's just lost her $200,000 stallion. And then, Cece and her brother exit, and Mr. Sheffield is about to then rub Fran's face in the fact that this was all a bet, which kind of like, I guess works in that it would make her feel bad that that's the only reason Noel was spending time with her. But I would also be like, if I was Fran, like, well, cool, he bet on my intelligence and he won. So like, actually,
exactly.
I'm not at all. But
no, and I think he bet on my intelligence. Like, if anything, it would push her to him. He like, wow, he really believed in me before he even knew me.
Yes.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira,
pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Chegou a melhor parte do podcast. É hora de provar a melhor Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola sem açúcar. O sabor irresistível da Coca-Cola sem açúcar e igualmente refrescante. Coca-Cola sem açúcar. A melhor escolha.
But Mr. Sheffield is going to say this from a place of sort of pettiness. But before he can, she's like, oh, Mr. Sheffield, you're already so smart and cultured and everybody knows it and everybody listens to what you have to say. She's like, so you have no idea how it feels to a girl like me to have the respect of like a person like Noel. Right. And, I think to Mr. Sheffield's credit, he instantly realizes like, no, I can't take this from her, which he's really not because she got on Jeopardy already, but whatever.
Yeah.
But he, he pauses and then and she's like, and so what did you want to tell me, Mr. Sheffield? And he's literally like, good luck on Jeopardy. So he does take the high road finally in this episode. And then we get to the big, huge set piece of this episode, which I loved. I mean, I don't love everything they did to get her here, but it's literally Fran on the Jeopardy set. And Alex Trebek is there, and I got a real pang of sadness that he's gone. It like weirdly hit home.
Same.
And I actually love this scene for him for a couple things that he does specifically. I think that's what really made this like a great scene for me.
He popped up in a lot of stuff in this kind of like cameo, and he was always funny. Yeah. Like he just had good timing, Smart people are always funny, He's a very smart guy.
You really?
Yeah. Very
Alex
smart.
Trebek of
Very
Jeopardy.
smart. I mean, look, you're saying that like it's a given that all game show hosts have to be good at the game show they host.
But I think he's famously known to be like with like the heart and mind behind that show.
Yes.
But so,
and now it's heartless and brainless.
yeah. So first Fran's really nervous, but then she goes out there and she's initially behind. And it's funny because she's kind of just like filing her nails. Like she's clearly kind of zoning out well on Jeopardy. And we have these other two contestants and the question that comes up is like this famous Thomas invented this household product in like 1880 or whatever it was. Someone guesses the light bulb, someone guesses the phonograph because they're thinking like Thomas Edison. And then Alex Trebek is like, Miss Fine, do you want to weigh in? And she's like, huh? Because she's been filing her nails. And he repeats the question and she's like, the fork separated English muffin or whatever it was called. And then she begins to recite the actual copy from the English muffin commercial at the time. She's literally like, it was 1890 when Mr. Thomas decided to close up his shop in the old country and head to ours. And so Alex Trebek is literally like, that's actually right. And so she gets a little bit ahead and then they go into Daily Double. And I thought they did a good job of using questions that might be realistic to the show and also having contestants guess realistically wrong answers. I like that. I like that they put a little effort into that. And in this one, it was which Egyptian city was incorporated into the Roman Empire after Cleopatra's suicide. And we have this really, really funny thing where, we go into the Double Jeopardy music and the two other contestants are like scribbling their answers. And Fran is in a very Lucille Ball way, like clearly like, she throws her earring on the floor and he goes, oh, my earring. And then kind of tries to like look over everyone's shoulder to see what they're writing. And she doesn't have any success. And then we kind of get the idea that there's like this little like light bulb almost that goes off into her head. So that like almost like she figured something out. And then, the first contestant gets it wrong. The second contestant gets it wrong. And then Alex Trebek is like, okay, Miss Fine. And she's like, okay. And instead of just saying the answer, she starts on this long-winded story where she's like, so my mother and I were flying out of Israel and we were sitting next to, and like, it goes on. And he is basically like, okay, like, but what's your answer? And she's like, okay, Mr. Impatient. And she keeps going on with the story. And then Alex Trebek does this amazing Mr. Sheffield impersonation because he literally goes, Miss Fine. Like he loses it. And she's like, okay, what is Alexandria? And it's right.
Yep.
And so she wins. And that's why I say it was very Slumdog Millionaire. Like,
but it's really funny because she only bets $100 because she only has $100. So she wins with $200. And really the only reason she wins is because the other two people had bet more and they go into the negative. So she barely wins by $200 on Jeopardy, which I thought was really funny. If you watch Jeopardy, it's a hilarious win.
Yes.
It's like barely a win.
And she's jumping up and down and she runs over and hugs Alex Trebek and she's going, hi, Ma, on camera. And, it's this very like victorious moment for her. And then we cut to Fran in the kitchen like the following week. And she's actually on the phone with Jeopardy because she's complaining that they didn't send her the agreed upon number of rice-a-ronis.
Yes.
And then Mr. Sheffield comes in and, they're just chatting and the kitchen, there's a knock at the kitchen door. And I go, Roger Clinton again? 3 question marks.
Me too.
It's Roger Clinton. Bill
Clinton. I wrote the same note. I wrote, who is friends with Roger Clinton on this show?
Oh my God. So he knocks at the door and Fran's like, oh, Mr. Sheffield, like you remember Roger Clinton, Bill Clinton's brother? Like they have to establish it again. Mm-hmm. And she's like, he's actually the guy who moved in next door.
It's stupid to establish it twice. It's like double stupid because A, the characters have already met this person. So like they are familiar with who he is. And B, he's literally the sitting president's brother who everyone at the time knew. So like there's double no reason for her to introduce him like that.
Well, you know what? We say everybody knew it, but there's always those polls where it's like so many people like don't know the name of the president's wife or the president's children. And like we do because
True.
we actually like
That's
are
true.
voters, but there's so many people who would like much sooner know every contestant on American Idol than like any
Than like
name.
the first lady's name.
Yes, 100%.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
And but the thing is, even though they have him on, they still totally diss him because then Mr. Sheffield goes, yes, Roger, it's amazing you have time to stop by. What with, and then he like thinks and he goes, your brother's job and all. Like you thought he was going to say what with your busy schedule, but like he can't even finish the sentence because and then Roger is literally like, I just wanted to hand deliver this invitation to you, Mr. Sheffield. It's from my brother. And he opens it and it's an invitation to the Renaissance weekend.
Yes.
And he like says his goodbye and leaves. And Mr. Sheffield looks at Fran and he's like, you didn't have anything to do with this, did you? Because he's very, very happy. But he kind of suspects like maybe she had gone over to Roger and like asked.
Right.
And she's like, of course not. Do you really think I could influence the president of the United States? And she's like, no, go pick up a corsage. You're taking out Janet Reno tonight. which Janet Reno was the attorney general at the time. Yes. And she was sort of a formidable looking woman. So I think there was also a joke in that as well. like she seemed like a tough cookie and not necessarily someone that Mr. Sheffield
That was a very diplomatic way of describing Janet Reno.
I'll just say this. Will Ferrell used to play her on Saturday Night Live. Then that's the episode. There really wasn't that much Michael McKean.
No, I know. I felt a little robbed. I like Michael McKean a lot. He's great. He didn't really get a lot to do. Although I still think, stop, you're going to make me go right here. It's such a good line. And the delivery is so funny. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right, segments.
Segments.
And now, segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
We can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments with Sean and Toria. So I'm thinking, since this is our first week of slightly switching things up, we should do our favorite lines and moments like usual, because that kind of flows well. And then we'll go into what the audience was thinking.
Ooh, I can't wait. Okay. Well, my favorite line that didn't get mentioned is in the very beginning, Cece's talking. She's, talking about her brother is coming. And she goes, every summer, my brother would take me to the horse show. And Niles goes, did you ever win? Yes. It's classic Cece Niles. Like you said, it after the season opener, it sort of brought you back to like, oh, yeah, right. This is what their relationship is. Like, we're not going to get like now they flirt or he doesn't insult her. Like, we're right back to it, which was really nice. And I thought it was just like a really funny line.
Yeah, I really like that. I think I already was so excited about my favorite lines. I mentioned them, but I liked Maxwell's an educated man. She went to Nick at Night school. I do really enjoy it. And again, Alex Trebek yelling Miss Fine in utter exasperation, like with his hands like ringing at his ears.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Just killed me.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So what did the audience have to say?
Okay. So, and just to catch everybody up, this week for the first time ever on at Oh Mr. Sheffield pod on Insta, we asked you guys like your thoughts and comments or questions about the episodes we were going to record today. And we got so much awesome feedback. We were so excited to read it all. So, okay. Erin Hibbler wrote, she goes, am I crazy? Or at the end of Franny and the Professor, when she counts her boxes of rice-a-roni, she says 5, but I swear there are 6 boxes there. She is not crazy. In the first shot where you see them, there are 5 boxes. And then when Mr. Sheffield comes in a moment later, there are 6 boxes there.
Yeah.
So it was just totally one of those, whoever was supposed to be doing, what's it called when you do those checks, before each scene? Continuity checks. Yeah. Yes. Someone missed it.
I mean, that's supposed to be the script supervisor's job.
I truly, truly think if I had to actually pick a job that I would be worst at in the world, it would be that. Yeah. That would be so hard for me, like detail oriented, visual, like whatever show I did that for would be a friggin' mess.
You would be bad at it.
I would be so bad at it. Then our very good friend of the pod, who's been on the podcast before, Genevieve Kane, wrote, Cece and her brother really be serving us Cersei and Jaime Lannister vibes. Great. And the funny thing is, I hadn't rewatched this episode before I read some of these comments. So I was like so excited. I was like, what is going to happen? And then finally, we have La Petite Sparks, who has gifted us with some amazing nanny trivia in the past because she's worked in production for many years. She also had some comments. Some of the most, I won't share them all, even though she sent us a ton of great stuff. But she made a note that season 3 is when we start to consistently get jealous Maxwell, which I have very much noticed as well. They're really turning that up. She says that she noted that Michael McKean was in Spinal Tap with Fran Drescher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I forgot she was in Spinal Tap. Yeah, that's right. I forgot she was in that.
Yeah, I also forgot
connection.
It's so interesting because she has had these parts in some very iconic films of the 20th century, that you don't necessarily associate her with. So it's always fun when you make those connections. She also said, she noted that they reuse actors in different small roles a lot. Both the Jeopardy players are in multiple episodes. So want to look out for them. And
so they had a lot of like recurring extras that they were just like, get in here, put this shirt on.
Which a lot of shows do.
Yeah, they do.
But, and she also, had a similar comment to us. She went, I don't always love when they make Fran appear stupid, but then I did like the way that she passed Jeopardy. So,
and I would, like I was saying, I would argue that it was pretty consistent because her passage of Jeopardy really came from her knowledge of like weird pop culture minutia. And, that is the kind of thing that she has consistently been shown to like have.
Yes. Oh, and I'll say the way she passed the Jeopardy test, which I'm assuming means the like entry test. So she's smart. She just hasn't always applied herself. That's which I totally agree with. And then last thing from listener Susanna Varghese, she noted that first of all, season 3 in general, she says wardrobe, hair, and makeup acting is perfection this season. Big fan. She says there's a lot of 70s inspo in Fran's style.
Nice.
And for this episode specifically, also, Susie wants to hook up with her brother, ? Was that the joke?
Yes. That was the joke.
Yep.
Cece wants to sleep with her brother.
And she really enjoyed a line that is a great line, but we didn't flag it, when Fran is talking to Mr. Sheffield and she goes, "You've never appreciated my inane intelligence." This innate intelligence.
Inane.
And she cited a lot of some of the same things that we did in terms of enjoyable lines. And she also says that she says in some episodes they play Fran to be quite smart, and in others she's highly unintellectual, but her thoughtfulness and sincerity always wins. Agreed. And also we started seeing that Mr. Sheffield's growing more attached to Fran. So I feel like hold on. Before I even move on, interesting facts and trivia that she provided. Affirmative action in California, Prop 209 passed in November 96, so it makes sense that Mr. Sheffield chose that as his topic. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the first time I ever heard affirmative action was like this period of my life. It was like mid 90s. It was like every sitcom was making affirmative action jokes. SNL was doing affirmative action bits. Like everyone was talking about affirmative action. And I didn't learn what it actually was until 4 years ago. I was a teenager at the time. It had no bearing on me. I was like, I don't care what this is.
we were young and we were white.
Listen.
That's the thing. When you're this is not true of teens today, or at least the teens that we hear about on TV. But pre-internet, it was very easy to live in a bubble.
Oh yeah,
it was very easy to be like, this is my life, so it must be everyone's life.
Well, and also like my mom didn't watch the news, so like we never had the news on in my house. So like, and that was it. Like, like there were newspapers, sure, and like you'd read what was in the newspaper sometimes, but like I wasn't reading I wasn't reading the newspaper at 15.
Yeah, it was pre-internet, pre-Twitter, pre-TikTok. It was very easy to not know a lot.
I feel like teenagers are able to access news now because it's just part of like their daily lives. It's part of like their feed. Something happens and it's just shoved in your face, or someone's doing 40 videos about it. But like, unless you picked up a newspaper or watched the weekly news, that was it. That was where you could learn things.
That was life. It was like that Tom Hanks movie, News from the World.
It is exactly like that movie, actually.
That wasn't so much. It was fine. 25 years ago, it would have been like the talk of the town.
Yes.
And we're gonna have to figure out how to edit this, because now we still have nanny trivia. So it's like maybe we won't do nanny trivia some weeks to shorten it. Who knows? But for nanny trivia this week, Franny and the Professor comes from a sitcom from 1970 called Nanny and the Professor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about a nanny to a single father, a sort of whimsical English nanny. It ran for 54 episodes on ABC. And it was clearly very much inspired by Mary Poppins. But from everything I read, it was like she was more magical than a regular person, but less magical than Mary Poppins. And they walked this weird line of like, she would always know who was at the door before she answered it, or she knew who was calling. But like, you're not really sure. Like and it says Nanny was apparently psychic and had regular flashes of what was often more than intuition, accented by a musical tinkling sound effect.
So it was like going after like Bewitched.
Yes. But like, again, not like with that. Okay. Premise is witch becomes a housewife, Jeannie lives with a regular American
and
man.
This was like Mary Poppins, the TV show.
Yeah. Okay. So that was I never heard of this, but I kind of feel like I would have loved it if it had been on Nick at Night.
Yeah, agreed. I'm shocked I've never heard of this show, because this sounds like right up my alley. Like,
also, I love this detail. It says midway through the first season, Nanny and the kids restored a broken down 1930 model Ford, which Nanny named Arabella. For some reason, the car's radio can only pick up radio broadcasts from 1930.
See, it was magical.
It's cool. It's so cool. I loved it. That has nothing to do really with this show, though, that we're talking about, The Nanny.
No, but surprise, the next show we're going to watch every episode of, do a podcast about. We only do shows with Nanny in the title.
Oh, Nanny knows best.
Yeah. Nanny and the Professor is next. I mean, it's only 54 episodes. We could do that.
Oh, yeah.
We've done 54 episodes already.
Let's double down and do both podcasts at the same time. And then, Yiddish, Quelling. When Cece's brother introduces himself as Dr. Babcock, she goes, a teacher and a doctor, your mother must be Quelling. Which, she clearly didn't know that if you have a PhD,
Professor,
your title.
Doctor, yeah.
But Quelling is bursting with pride or satisfaction.
Yeah, Quelling. Oh my God, Quelling.
And finally, after this,
overwhelmed with pride.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are some doctors who are PhDs, and that must give you the most satisfaction. Can you imagine?
Nope.
Can you imagine? No, we certainly can't.
I can't. I can barely imagine finishing high school.
Which brings me to the Fran or the Cece perfectly. I say we're both the Frans. We would both only ever have a chance at winning a game show if it was pop culture based knowledge.
Yes, this is correct. And also, my siblings are the more successful ones. So that was the only way I relate to Cece. But neither one of them are professors or doctors.
But Cece's also a success in her own right. She's theoretically a successful Broadway producer.
True. She is she has a successful career. She's just unsuccessful at everything else. Unsuccessful at life.
I was gonna say you're also the Fran because you just said insuccessful.
Insuccessful. That's
it's like when Ralphie from The Simpsons goes, "Me fail English? That impossible." And yeah, I actually am bad at all trivia, even pop culture based trivia. I just can't think of it when there's pressure involved.
No, I could kill on pop culture trivia show. There used to be like a MTV show that was like pop culture trivia. There was also one that was like music video trivia. I was like, I would kill at this. But then I had a friend of mine get on Jeopardy, and I went to the taping, and I was like, well,
I know. Yeah.
This wouldn't be me. I'll tell you that.
We're still figuring out this new segment, how long it should be, if it's going to be something that really works long term, but we so loved getting your thoughts and your insights, and we're going to definitely do it for next week's episode, and we'll keep doing it if it's feeling good.
Listen, just keep sending them in. We'll keep posting the things, and you guys, if you have thoughts or you have feelings or you have cool facts, just post them and share them, because even if we don't read all of them, it's super interesting for Tori and I. Mm-hmm. Like, we like it, and it's a good way for us to interact with all of you, and it's fun. So if you want to do that, find us on Twitter or Instagram at Oh Mr. Chef Pod. That's chef with 2 F's and an SH. And then also go to listen, guys. Go to Apple Podcasts. Go to Spotify. You're already there. You're listening to the show. Leave a review. Rate 5 stars, leave a review, say this is the best show I've ever heard about the nanny, and I can't imagine another show about the nanny. And that helps us. It helps us. It helps other people find the show, and it helps us feel good about ourselves. So just if either of those reasons fall on your ears, then please go do that. That would be great. And if you don't, that's also fine. We hope you're enjoying the show, and we can't wait to do another 400 of these. All right, bye.
Bye, guys.
The Flashing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.